Welcome back to The Potentialists. My name is BertOliva, and today I have an amazing special guest. This gentleman, I stumbled across his YouTube channel because I had lower back issues. And when I saw his channel and all the information about how to, kind of self-repair your back, I guess the algorithm picked it up, and next thing you know, I received a video that had nothing to do with back issues. He's a chiropractor from Texas. He has his own clinic, and he does really well. But that wasn't the video that YouTube sent to me. It was more about this man has 4 to 6 months to live, and a lot less now. I want to bring him on, and this is not for everyone to watch. If you have an issue where someone is telling you they're dying and you don't want to know about it, then don't watch it. If you want to know how someone has been told they're dying and they're willing to live the best life they have every moment of the day, then this video is definitely for you. So I want to bring him on, Dr. Dan Bockmann. Just wanted to say hi, Doc. We did talk for a few minutes before, and I'm just going to repeat a lot of the stuff that I told you. You are a true inspiration. I've been doing seminars professionally all over the world for the past 30 years. And once I stumbled across your video, I just couldn't stop watching. I went into your playlist. By the way, for those of you that have like YouTube, go to YouTube/Dr. Dan Says. That's his YouTube channel. And then you can go into the playlist. And in the playlist, I looked for, your journey of what you're doing. I just went through every single video. Literally, I went to every single video, and it was just mind-blowing. There's so many things happening in our world, and most of the times we focus on all the negative things because we've been conditioned that way. And I think more people need to watch these kinds of stories. This is what I want to see on 2020 or 60 Minutes. Not how they murdered someone, but how someone is fighting to live. And I truly believe, and I'm going to give all my support, and I'm going to connect with all my contacts, and I'm going to try to get as much people to watch his videos in order to help his GoFundMe page, which he doesn't have one, but he will have one by the end of the show, and buy his programs, help him live a little longer. He ran out of his money. We'll talk more about that. But at the same time, he's not looking for help. That's one of the reasons I brought him in, is because his selfless act of kindness, that's what I took out of it. This man doesn't know if tomorrow is promised for him, but yet he's still doing videos to help people to solve their pain issues. And to me, that was phenomenal. So I want to get to know a little bit more about you, Dan. So Dan, tell me, let's go into the younger years, because you're still young, you're still a handsome guy. And if I see you right now, if I met you, I couldn't tell what you're going through. But I kind of gave him an idea of what we're going to talk about. But let's talk a bit about the younger Dan.
Yeah. So in high school, of all places, and yes, I'm a chiropractor, and I kind of fell into it. I'd never seen a chiropractor before. Grew up in East Texas, in Tyler, Texas. I'm the oldest of 4 boys, and we grew up out in the country, running around fishing and adventuring, exploring, and so on. It was a great place to grow up. And went to high school, and towards the end of it, you're thinking, where do I want to go career-wise? And our school gave us an aptitude test and a skills test, and to see what you're good at, see what you like. Both of them said I should become a chiropractor, and I was like, wow. What is that? And I asked my counselor, and she said, I think it's some kind of bone doctor, maybe. So she didn't even really know either. And I was like, oh, well, doctor, that sounds cool. I'm 18 years old, Yeah. Oh, doctor sounds cool. So really long story short, I got distracted college life. Boy, did I partake in that. And 10 years go by, I'd been taking a little school here and there, but mostly just kind of living it up, as I'm sure I'm not the only one who's done that, I'm sure. And got married. Not married now, but at the time I was like, wait a second, I can't retire as a bartender. I don't want that. Right. So I said, I should start looking for a career. So ended up looking into it, interviewed a bunch of docs who practice in that field, figured out, hey, this sounds like something I'm actually interested in, and pursued it. So long story short, I graduated about 23 years ago. And it's crazy to say that, because I think we just never feel as old. We never feel our age, I think. And and I don't feel old. And it's crazy to say 23 years ago I did anything,
Right.
but yeah, 23 years ago I got out of school, started practicing, and over that time, I'm in private practice now in Austin, Texas, like you said, and I've developed. Um, I would say it's my proudest achievement is developing a framework that allows us to get rid of body pain of various kinds, specifically moving parts problems like backs, necks, knees, shoulders, hips, etc. Things that, as opposed to internal organ stuff. So anything you would go to rehab for or PT for, that's my wheelhouse, and have been just loving the effects of being able to practice in this way. And I've described it before as I feel like a pain Sherpa. Pain Sherpa. A Sherpa helps the climbers climb the mountain, right? The Sherpa doesn't climb the mountain for you, but the Sherpa tells you, oh, you need to take that out of your bag. You're not going to need that. It's going to weigh it down. Oh, don't go that way. Let's go this way. You know what? Here's how to not freeze at night. So the Sherpa doesn't do the job, but the Sherpa kind of guides you and hopefully nudges you in the direction to where you can actually do the thing you're trying to do. And that's what I feel like. And it's a tremendously rewarding job to do. I look forward to every day I come into work, and that's why I'm still working.
You work how many days a week? 5 days a week?
I work 5 days a week. I'm just working mornings mostly right now, just because, I mean, my cancer is colon cancer. I don't have any cancer symptoms right now. I have symptoms from all the other treatments. So I had, 6 surgeries last year. I had chemo and radiation for a year. So, I've got missing parts and stuff. And without going into too much information here, I have certain limitations as to how much I can work each day. I have windows during which I can do things, but working 5 days a week and worked all through chemo, and honestly, it sustains me. It sustains me getting to work with people and go through a really intense short-term relationship, which is what it feels like. We see our patients on average twice to get them to where they want to be and then release them. So it's a really short, intense relationship. So that's as far as work goes. That's where I am.
And some of these patients don't even know what you're going through, right?
That's right. Although more and more,
right,
I'm amazed at how many people before they came in for the first time found me on YouTube. You mentioned YouTube. So the story, the little journal, the little video journal, my cancer recovery journal, I started that, Bert, as just a way to update my friends and family. Oh, I had test results. That would be an hour on the phone with everybody, which I don't have.
Right.
I would love to update everyone personally. So I was just like, I'll just shoot a little video update. I'll just post them on here. And I was just I just shoot the link to friends and family. And well, out of nowhere. And by the way, my YouTube channel is very small. I think I had 1,200 subscribers or something, maybe, a few thousand views a month. Out of nowhere, this most recent one, perhaps the one you saw first, the 2 to 6 months to live,
about almost 1 million views.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I still can't wrap my mind around that. And the outpouring of love and just support and prayers. I feel like the most prayed for guy in the solar system.
That's awesome.
It feels just like an ocean of love and support around me that I'm going to try not to get emotional, but it's powerful. And I
have you always been a Christian, or?
I was raised Christian, and then I have since become agnostic for reasons. I will say that, and I'm happy to discuss, but I will say my mind is open. I'm always willing. I hope my goal is to keep my mind open to better evidence. And I definitely feel, I'll tell you this. I don't buy the Big Bang Theory. I'll tell you that. Evolution, I can see, I can see how things evolve over time. Yeah. We've got historical records of that stuff, but something from nothing, I'm sorry, that just doesn't, and that's a pretty key element. So I would say I'm an intelligent design person at the moment. And as far as who the designer is, that's a question mark for me. So, but I'm willing to be persuaded.
That's great. That's great. That's great way of putting it. You mentioned you were married. How long were you married?
5, 6 years, I believe. And we split up and have been great. Well, we don't talk a lot, but when we do, we're besties. And ended about 20 years ago. Her mom, my ex's mom, called me and said, "Hey, my hand's hurting. What do you recommend I do for that?" So we're definitely on good terms there. But it was just a case. That was a case, I think, and I think she would agree as well. I think it was a case of us just getting married too soon, too early,
But it's
or
been
too
20
early in our.
years. In 20 years, you haven't
Been
found,
20 years.
with this good looking guy, you haven't found someone else in 20 years?
Oh, so maybe the pendulum swung the other direction. I don't know. I I'm I honestly, Bert, I enjoy I'm kind of an introvert who has, I can be extroverted. I love
Yeah.
speaking in public. I love, you know, teaching and so on,
Hmm.
but in doses. And I think that may have something to do with why I enjoy living alone. I enjoy my time with my own thoughts. I love the time with other people as well.
But you're
There's
not
just
dating
perhaps
anyone. Not no one lives with you.
not currently dating. Well, see, this is kind of the problem too there. So I've dated for certainly off and on. But now for, again, various reasons without going into too much. I mean, I have to wear Depends. I have to wear Depends for the last year and a half, and it just and plus, you know, chemo and radiation can have an effect. It was all blasting down
Mm.
in my southern quadrant there, so things don't work quite as well as they used to. They still work, but just uh, it's not something I'm just kind of
Right.
anxious to get back into at the moment. At the moment, but I'm definitely open to relationships in the future for sure.
Wow. So you don't have any children, right?
No kids, no kids.
Wow.
Just a gleam in their daddy's eye. Just the support is just wonderful. I feel blessed with the most amazing family. My mom and my parents just showed up yesterday, unannounced. They live in East Texas. So mom texts me, said, excuse me, I'm halfway there. I'm sorry in advance, but we're coming. So, but my mom lived with me. My dad has stayed off and on. He works in the church that he attends in Tyler. So he has other responsibilities shared there. But mom and dad have been here a lot. I'm the oldest of four. We lost the youngest one about 20 years ago.
Was
But
it was
my
it
other two,
was it through cancer?
no, it's a strange story. He disappeared.
Oh,
We suspect it was suicide. We suspect it was because seriously attempted twice
oh,
before. He had some substance abuse issues and some
oh.
mental health issues and some
Sorry,
medication
sorry for your
problems.
loss.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was Robbie. Um, but my brothers, my number two is Mark, and my number three is John. Number four would be Robbie. But both have visited me recently and been immensely supportive and offering things, offering help in any way. I feel like the most blessed guy, and honestly, it hurts my heart to know that not everybody has this. No, I mean, tons of people don't have this kind of support system. I cannot imagine what it would be like going through a health situation like this that is so common, without that kind of support like I have. So
I
I'm
agree.
I'm hugely grateful to my family and friends. And it just goes on and on. It's just a limitless army of people around me supporting
How
and
do they approach you? Do they approach you with like, "Oh, Dan, everything's gonna be okay," or they're just normal around you? How does that work?
so yeah, that's a real thing, what you're talking about.
Right.
And I can give you an example of how I reacted badly to a friend of mine who had cancer when I was 20. But but I have not. I know that there's this awkwardness, right? It's like, how do I, it's like they're seeing a dead man walking,
Yep.
right? I don't feel like I don't get that reaction, or I'm not picking up on that from pretty much anyone. But I think, like you said, it may be because I look pretty healthy, right? I don't look like a guy on his deathbed.
Exactly.
I don't look like one of my videos I call the 2-minute warning. I don't look like that, and that's actually my main health goal, is, as far as what I can do for myself, is stay as healthy as I can, eat as well as I can, get as much exercise, as much sun, as much sleep, all the things we hydrate, all the things we know, just to try to give my body a fighting chance. But it also, I think, helps keep it helps others relate to me perhaps better. The example I was going to give, a girl friend of mine who we were very close, developed brain cancer when I was 20. I was a kid. And I was so weirded out. I did not know how. I didn't visit her. I visited her once, and I felt awful for that. I mean, obviously 20 something years, 30 years, 35 years. And so I understand the awkwardness, or the difficulty in approaching someone in my situation. I completely, that was me. But having said that, I don't sense that from people I run into. So I'm grateful. I don't want to make people feel strange or odd.
Did she make it? Did she make it? Or
She did not. She did not. God bless her. Shelley Patterson. I still remember her. Just the sweetest little thing. I worked at Bennigan's. She was a hostess at Bennigan's. I was a waiter or bartender there.
That's crazy. Yeah. So when it comes to your mental health, how do you keep it like this? And I know this is not your norm 24 hours a day, right?
Sure.
Because one of the videos I'll talk about in a little bit, one of the videos I'm going to mention was the most heartfelt video for me. And it wasn't like this, right? So let's talk a little bit about the mental health.
Yeah. So what's my toolbox that I use to kind of manage all the stuff up here, plus life, right? Because we still got our life responsibilities. And I'll preface by saying this. We all know cancer exists, and we all imagine what it must be like to have that diagnosis, and just think, oh my God, you must just feel like you're just like a dead man walking, like your days are numbered and you're aware of it all the time, constantly. It's almost never for me. And I'll say maybe 5% of my week, I'm thinking about it. The rest is just doing things I'm passionate about, I'm excited about. I wake up every day excited, energetic, to see what adventure the day has ahead, just more so than it used to be in the past for me, but like we all have experienced before. And I think to answer your question, mental health wise, I read this book right when I got diagnosed. So this is about 2.5 years ago. And it's called Radical Remission. So basically it's a brilliant idea and a resource, but so people get well from cancer inexplicably, right? Science doesn't know why. They're sent home or sent to hospice, right? And they say, this is when you've got to, like in my situation, my doctor told me hospice is something you need to think about. She told me this last month. Well, these people are sent home and they don't die. And science doesn't know why, and doctors don't know why. This book is about them. So the author went and interviewed hundreds of these people and found that they all had these 9 things in common that they all did. And each chapter in the book is one of those 9 things. And I listened to it on audiobook twice. It was the best thing I could have done at that time, because there's no way to manage the storm of stuff going on up in here. When you hear something like that, it's just too, you don't have the bandwidth for it. It's too much to process.
I can only imagine.
Of those 9 things, only 2 of them were physical things: diet, exercise, those kinds of things, supplements, whatever. The other 7 were all up here. They were all mental things, like giving love, receiving love, making amends, like repairing old grudges and arguments and stuff, forgiving people, meditation, sleep, laughing every day. The other one is feeling emotions. And I've always struggled with that. I've struggled with fully feeling my emotions. I mentioned my little brother passed away or disappeared. We never found him, still to this day. And I feel like, just in this one example, I never fully grieved for him. And part of it's, well, we didn't find him. There wasn't a casket we could all, and see, oh, this is the final chapter. We didn't have that. But that's been true for me really for most of my life. I just felt, and I was aware.
Well, you guys are from Texas, guys. Texas men. You guys are from Texas. Let's be realistic. Yeah. You guys are the men of men, right?
And I'm sure that's part of it, right? We have expectations as men, Texan or otherwise, that men are stoic and they're strong and they weather things and they're not supposed to show them all these stereotypes we hear about. And but feeling all your feelings, that has probably been the single most helpful bit of advice that I got from that book, feeling all your feelings. And I thought, well, you need to have a positive mental outlook to beat cancer, right? You have to, if you think you're gonna die, well, then you're gonna die, is kind of just what I assumed, I guess. But here's the problem. You can't control your thoughts. They're just popping in there. And then you feel guilty for having the bad thoughts. And then you're thinking about them even more. And it just becomes this self-fulfilling cycle, right? So instead of trying to push out the bad thoughts, I welcomed them all in. And the phrase that meant the most to me was, they said, let your emotions flow through you. They come in, they pop in, let them just revel in them, feel every bit of the experience, and then they flow right through you and out. The problems happen. So this is what I think I'd been doing most of my life up till now. I think the things come in and I'm like, oh, I can't let that go. And it just stays. All that stuff just packs in there and there's no room for that stuff and it's not healthy. And letting yourself, in fact, telling myself to fully experience all this stuff, and it just rinses out. It's just the most liberating, freeing feeling. And the way that I figured out that worked for me was music, actually. And it may be different for someone else, but I react very powerfully to music. It has a big influence. Music, like beautiful, it's not sad music, but I'll cry at classical music, other songs. I mean, I've got a playlist of songs that I will just blubber through. And I always wondered why. And I think that was my only outlet. Well, so I wanted to feel emotions. I just started to listen to all that stuff. I started watching Steel Magnolias and other like heartfelt, uplifting kinds of things. I stopped listening to the news. So I cut out all the stressful stuff. I don't watch things that make me tense or like whether it's TV or news, things these days, it's everywhere, right? It's outrage everywhere you look. So I just cut that stuff out. And then there was room, I think, for these other things. And it's just like breathing a sigh of relief, is just letting these things come through. So I laugh out loud now by myself. I'll find myself each day, I'll laugh out loud. I'll probably tear up or cry. It's something that's beautiful, or my emotions they're kind of on my sleeve right now, but it's such a good feeling. Wow. It's a liberating feeling.
That is awesome.
Because it all felt packed in.
When you're listening to these songs and you start tearing up, what's going through your mind?
Just beauty. That's the closest I can say. I heard a interview with a young piano virtuoso the other day, and he said it perfectly. He said, music expresses emotions that there aren't words for. And that puts it perfectly for me, because you and I are talking, we're sharing words and we're communicating our ideas, but there aren't words for everything. No. And for me, music it's another language that reaches it, it touches things inside me anyway that nothing else has. I don't know if it's the same for other people or not, but that was my access point to get in through this hard bony shell that it kind of developed around me was through music.
You've always been this bubbly shell.
I feel like yeah, I feel like yes, to one degree or another.
Wow.
And maybe it's a soft shell, but it's a shell. It feels restricting, feels limiting, but boy, it's gone now. It's just gone. And part of the purpose of me sharing that last or one of the last videos that got such a big reaction and just being raw and just sharing exactly what I was thinking and feeling. Part of it was, man, I just wish I had been able to figure this out sooner. And I want other people to be able to figure it out for themselves and not have to wait till they get to this point. Hopefully they never will. But if it's possible to sidestep in our deathbed and find this stuff out early, man, what a difference it'll be for each individual, the world.
Why? Because when you first found out, you got what? You just locked in and you didn't take it in, or what would happen when you first found out? I believe that was like in June 22nd, 2021. That's when you realized that you had stage 4 cancer.
Yes. And boy, your mind, it's probably exactly what you might expect. Your brain is just all over the place. It doesn't compute. Now, my symptoms were awful by the time I'd gotten that. I'd actually expected that diagnosis by the time I got it.
What symptoms did you have? What did you have? Like what?
It was, it was pain. Well, the main problem is when it comes to going to the bathroom, you can't go.
Okay.
You can't go. So the tumor had closed off so you got plumbing, right? Tumor had closed that off. But
at this time, you haven't done any tests or anything. You were just going through it, right?
Yeah, it all started during COVID during 2020, and it started very mild. It was like a little constipation, maybe a little diarrhea, discomfort. Oh, I'm going to a few more bathroom trips than usual, and it was like I'm gonna tweak my diet. So I tried to change my diet and some hydrating better. I tried the things that one might try if they were having those symptoms, and it was getting slowly worse. And then it kind of ramped up towards the end of 2020 to where I just call it misery. I don't want to, sugarcoat it. But it was pain down there. It felt like I was sitting on a golf ball all the time. A painful golf ball, which it turns out was.
But it wasn't a hemorrhoid at that time. It was just inside. This is hemorrhoid. Pain inside.
Yeah. It's the taint area is where the pain was. Sure everybody knows that term, but that's where the pain was for me because that's where the tumor was. It's in the rectum is the last, I don't know, 3-4 inches in there. And they said it was about the size of a softball or so. So, and they said the opening I had left was that much. They showed me on a CT scan. They're like, I don't know how you're going at all. And so I was like, oh, well, that explains a lot. The cool thing is once I started chemo, I was getting relief within the first week of chemo. It was shrinking the tumor, which means that opening was getting bigger. And so I started getting some relief during chemo and stuff. Man, I felt pretty darn good. I mean, other than the chemo symptoms, which aren't great. But
that's insane. Then on February 6th, 2022, you did liver surgery and you lost 50 pounds.
Yes. So the lost 50 pounds, that was after a subsequent surgery. But yes, they took a third of my liver. So the tumor basically they call it a primary tumor. It's where the tumor started and then before it spread. The primary tumor is colorectal, which is in your plumbing down at the end. It spread to liver, which is one of the first places it tends to go. And it also went to my lungs, both lungs. So I had some little spots in both lungs. 6 or 7 in my liver.
But you're not a smoker or anything, right?
No, no.
Wow.
I drank a lot though, Bert. I drank a lot. So I was a healthy dude. I've been vegetarian lifelong, super active, super fit. My only vice was alcohol, and I drank every night, Bert, every night, at least a bottle of wine, sometimes a bottle and a half. And I just flew under the radar. I was like, we rationalized that stuff. I did. I said, well, I'm not missing work. I'm not getting DUIs. I mean, I must be fine. And I'm also taking care of myself in these other ways. It's probably no big deal. Well, I think that's what it was. I think it was the alcohol. Of course, I've stopped since then. But I was super healthy up till then. Sorry, I may have forgotten your original question.
No, the original question was you lost the 50 pounds and you.
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah, I can. So the liver surgery actually went well. I was back in the gym week and a half, 2 weeks, really light. Then so the surgeries were, let's take out a third of your liver. By the way, they tell you the day of the surgery, by the way, 80% of the time these grow back, these tumors on this surgery. I was like, oh, good to know. And they did, but liver surgery went well. Then a little recovery time. Then they took out the colon tumor and gave me an ostomy bag at the same time. So an ostomy, so the colon, they took out, basically, again, your colon is a section of tube. They snipped off the bad end and reattached the new end. And they give us some time to heal by diverting food into this bag that sits on the outside of your belly. So I had a hole in my belly with a bag that I'd empty periodically. The problem was nothing was going into the bag. So anything I ate or drank just inflated me.
Oh my God.
And so it was supposed to be a 3-day hospital stay. I was in there for 2 months and couldn't eat for 2 months. That's how I lost the 50 pounds.
No, 2 months and no work either, right?
Yeah, no work. So that last year I missed about 4 months of work, I think. 4 months, maybe a little more. And again, who can do that? I'm very fortunate to be in that situation, to be able to miss that much work, and to have my mom there. I could dress myself. When I got out of the hospital, Bert, I was in a wheelchair. My mom was pushing me around in a wheelchair for a couple of weeks because I was too weak to stand. I weighed 129 pounds when I got out. I'm 6'1", went in at 180 pounds. In fact, I've got before and after pictures from the hospital. Yeah, I'm unrecognizable to myself. I look down, you're wearing that hospital gown, so you kind of can't see your own body. I couldn't take a shower. This is awful. I couldn't take a shower for a month and a half because I couldn't move. They just do sponge baths, and I never really saw my own body. And when I saw it, I looked down and I said, I've got wheelchair legs, Mom. Wow. Meaning for someone who was paralyzed, how I don't mean that to be offensive to anyone. It's just that was the first thing I thought when I looked down. And I'm used to having thighs that are big and strong.
Yeah, I think it's atrophy, right? You get atrophy. I'm so sorry.
Atrophy. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's another thing I had the weight to lose because 2 months of not eating, I don't know how long you can go, but I couldn't have gone much further. I mean, my body was burning my own muscle for fuel. So I'm glad I had it to burn because I couldn't eat. Wow. So, and then got back up to 175 or something like that. And it's been a while, but it got back up. I'm losing weight again.
You're losing weight because of the meds?
I'm on no meds right now.
Oh, really?
So cancer makes you lose weight. In fact, that's one of I'm wondering if that's part of, because tumors eat sugar at a rate like 50 times faster than all other cells. So that's why people get skinny on cancer. Well, and the medication can do that as well. But I'm on no meds and haven't been this year.
Why are you on no meds though?
Well, initially after my rough surgery experience, they don't want to give you chemo when you're just frail. You have to have a strong enough constitution to handle that stuff. And I mean, there's a couple other reasons, but they were basically saying, let's let you recover from this surgery. And then since then, we did a few scans to check, hey, is everything gone? And it took till like, I think February of this year for us to, some stuff grew back in February, I believe. Then, let's do a few follow-ups and see if they're growing, they're staying the same size, if they're stable or not. They were starting to grow. Then they went to my pancreas. So it's a bunch of kind of wait and see or watchful waiting, essentially. And they don't want to give you the hardcore chemo again, because there's a couple of reasons. One is, so I did the strongest chemo cocktail that they have initially, because I'm relatively young, I'm relatively healthy and strong, and I can handle it. And I did. But tumor cells become chemo resistant. So the same stuff that worked the first time typically doesn't work as well the second time. Plus, their side effects get worse. So they don't want to just throw you on stuff automatically, because I mean, it suppresses your immune system as well. So you never get a pure benefit. There's always some unwanted side effect that comes with everything. So that's why no meds so far.
So when are you starting the meds again?
I just qualified for a phase 1 trial of a new med.
Oh yeah, I want to get to that. Let's not bring it up yet, because that's
okay.
On October 6th, 2022, you had a setback. And this is where you made peace about you dying. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I'm guessing that was when we did a scan and popped back up in the liver, lungs are growing a bit, like things are going the wrong direction. And I'll say the peace with dying part has been a process. And I mentioned in one of the videos that I feel I'm actually glad that I knew my current situation was a possibility 2.5 years ago, because it gives you a chance to work through it. And so the peacemaking started 2.5 years ago, because I got news that, I may not have as much time as I thought. Now, it's not as bad a news as saying, oh yeah, you may have 2 to 6 months, but I knew this was a possible outcome. And so it's been a gradual kind of learning to live with this possibility over this 2.5 years. But of course, it's sped up a bit, because I've been optimistic this whole time. I just feel like I'm going to beat it, man. With no.
Well, what do you do
I'm
with
not
that? Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason I started following you. You were optimistic, but I'm sure that, let's say 80% of the time you're optimistic, then you have those 20% of moments that really hit. What do you do when those moments hit? Like, how do you respond? You probably cry, you probably, pray, whatever the case is. I want to know what happens in those 20% moments.
That's a great question. And the thing is, you get better at this, because when they happen over and over, you get better.
Right.
You get, okay, I've felt this kind of feeling before. It gets less stressful each time it happens, which is weird. You get more comfortable being uncomfortable. But for me,
so take me to the first one when you hadn't gotten better. The first shock and awe, like that first 20% when you're like, "This is really happening."
Like a zombie. I was like a zombie. I was just kind of stumbling through my day, phoning it in. It's hard to concentrate on anything. This was back when I first got diagnosed. It's hard. I mean, I would find myself, putting the cereal box in the fridge, things, distractions. You're like, wait, what? Why am I doing that? How did I end up here? I missed my exit. I mean, all that kind of stuff that goes on, because your brain is just running through all these little tapes in your head about, what does dying feel like? Am I afraid of death? Well, actually, I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of the dying part. I don't want it to be miserable. That's one of the things I figured out. I'm not afraid of being dead. Dead's fine. I'm afraid of the dying part. Whatever. If I don't want to be hooked up to tubes in misery, like I was last year, that I mean, that was as close to death as I've ever been. And it was pretty close, I feel. So I was afraid of the dying part. And I was also, I don't want to miss out on all the fun, cool stuff. That's my biggest lament is life is just, this part of my life is the best part, professionally, personally. I'm starting to work through things in my mind and feel like more of me, feel like more fully realized version of me. And it feels like I mentioned in one of the videos, it feels like personally, professionally, however we measure ourselves, I was just getting to the good part, and then I get snatched out of the game. It's like, sorry, you're done. You just finally figured out what you're here for. You figured out how to be truly happy and to feel love and feel emotion and just be a wonderful contributor, a part of the world, be useful. And now, sorry, you got to go. So that's what it felt like initially. Now, what helped with that was as I was doing the chemo, this was, when I first got diagnosed, but when I started doing the chemo, pain started going away almost immediately. So I started feeling more normal. When you feel normal, your brain works better, and it's an obvious trend in the right direction. So all of this is very encouraging. And also, to your point, to your question, the fact that I felt relatively good for, much of this year, we'll say, that's huge. That's huge for your mental part. Because if I was in the misery I was in last year, I'd be like, I may opt out here. I wouldn't be, I'm sure I wouldn't feel as optimistic.
Right.
I mean, when I was in the hospital, I thought, hey, man, this may be the last place I ever go. I may not see the outside of this room. And that's not it's harder to be optimistic in that situation. But now that I feel that I can do things, I can, go for a hike and go to the gym, and it takes you a long way towards brightening your mood, refreshing your optimism, giving you hope. But that first one, boy, that was a doozy. It was a doozy. I won't lie.
September 23, 2023, to me, this was the most heartfelt message I received. I mean, this is where you were like raw. You were just open. This is when we found out that you had 2 to 6 months to live. And we also found out that you burned through all your savings. That hit me at home too, because being an entrepreneur, you have your ups and downs, right? So, you can have a bad year, but 2 to 6 months to live. So, you lost your money. This is it. The moment is getting closer. And then you want to write a book. But then your quote right after that was, I don't know if I'm going to have the time now. Why? It's like you're so positive, but yet there's these little phrases that you say that kind of seems to me like you've already given up, have given up, right? Yeah. So you also started talking about everything feel more like real, more
rich and saturated.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. Like colors are more vibrant. The flowers are. It's like you're more aware of what's happening in life at this precise moment. That's beautiful. That episode, that one post, really took it all the way. That when I heard that post and I saw it, that's when I called my daughter over at one of the studios that we have, and I said, "You got to see this guy." And then my daughter was like, "Man, he's so handsome. He's young, Dad. I mean, wow. He's an angel. This man can help so many people." And I said, "I know. I want to reach out to him. I know his time is limited. I'm not saying because I believe that you're going to reach to 120. That's just me. I'm behind you, man. I'm going to be there. I'm your number one fan. But let's be realistic too, right? You could be optimistic and you could be realistic. So realistic, some numbers. I don't know if he's going to have time. I don't know if he's in the mood to do something like this. But man, it would be an honor. It's definitely an honor to just hear, because everyone can talk about it. You see it in movies. As much as they want to make a movie a true story, it's a movie. This is real.
Yeah.
You're going through this in this precise moment. Right before we did our interview, you needed an extra hour to get yourself in the zone. It is what it is. And that is so, I admire you for that. So on the 2023, you finally hear the 2 to 6 months that everybody dreads and movies and everything. How'd that go?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was with I met with my oncologist, and that's when she said, "Oh, we see a spot in your pancreas," which is a new place. So it's spread. And this particular place, it can pinch off, if the tumor grows, it can pinch this, the biliary tubule or something that supplies the liver. And if it does get pinched off, your liver fails. So she told me, all of this is before she gave me my prognosis, which is the 2 to 6 months. She said, yeah, if you turn yellow, she said, you've got a day or two, because it means your liver's failing. She said, come in immediately. So they might be able to put a little stent in there, a little tube that props it open a little bit, but that's going to be a short-term measure. So that, I'll admit, that took me by surprise, that it could be that rapid, that it can move that quickly on me. So that was a new layer. That was a new one for me. You know, you're used to like, oh, you made it, because up until now, she'd said, I'd asked my oncologist, I said, is there any risk that I'm just going to go into some rapid decline? She's like, oh, no. It's whatever happens, you know, worst case scenario, it's going to be a slow thing. Well, now it could be rapid. So then, of course, I start thinking about, you know, every morning I'm like looking at my eyes, and my eyes turning yellow. That was for a day or two. And now I just feel normal. Mentally about this whole thing. But yeah, that was a shock to hear her say 2 to 6 months. I said, well, the 2 to 6, she said, well, the 2 months is if you do nothing. So no treatment, which is what I've been doing.
Right, you're doing nothing. You have no treatment right now.
Doing nothing. She said, we have 3 options. You've got this phase 1 trial of a new drug. I don't want to jump ahead in your.
No, we're there. We're almost there. Yeah.
Okay. So you got a phase 1 trial of a new med, and it's of a category of chemotherapy that's called immunotherapy, otherwise known as targeted therapy. So regular chemo is poison that you drink or put through your veins, and you hope it kills the tumor before it kills you. That's what chemotherapy essentially is. So it's really rough on your system. This immunotherapy is the cutting edge of oncology. It's the direction chemo is going to go. They won't do the old kind once they figure these out. It's poisonous only to the tumor. So you can drink it, and there are some side effects, but it's way, way nicer to your system, and more of it gets to the tumor, which is where, of course, you want it. So that's a trial, which I may or may not be a candidate for, because we don't know what meds they're developing and if their meds are targeting my specific tumor DNA or not. As it turns out, I qualified for 3 trials. But so phase 1 trial is first option. Second option is go back to the same old chemo we used to do, which I'm not a fan of. Right. Third option is do nothing.
A question, since you qualify all 3, can you do all 3?
That's a great question. I think the answer is no, because I saw in the paperwork they said you can't take any other medication unapproved by this. And it would make sense. If they're trying to test how well does this thing work, they don't want multiple things that would confuse it. And I qualified for the best one, the one they think that I'll do best on. But the 2 months you do nothing. The 6 months is if the immunotherapy works.
Okay.
I was like, wow.
So
I thought the immunotherapy.
Right. So if it works, they're just giving you the 6 months.
Give me an extra 4 months,
That's
basically.
It. Not like it can go over
today,
1 year, 2 years or something. No.
She didn't put that as an option. Wow. So just like, all right, you ever use, your navigation app when you're driving somewhere? Yes. So when I use that, it says 16 minutes. That's the time to beat. You ever do that? Yep. It's like a little race. I'm going to see if I can beat this. That's how I feel. Like 2 to 6 months. Well, that's the time to beat, man. So let's extend this out. Let's prove her wrong. So that's just where my mind automatically goes.
But we've heard stories that people would call miracles, right? where a person
Yes.
has been diagnosed and they're like, you only got 6 months to live, and 6 years later, they've had a great life.
Yes.
So I'm praying
Yes.
for that for you, 100%. You know,
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And that is fully my intention. This brings up, you mentioned earlier, you said, wait a second, you're saying I want to beat this, and then you're saying I may not be here. Those seem at odds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you also right after that mentioned, well, I'm optimistic and I'm also a realist. How do those things work together? You're an optimist, but you don't walk out in traffic and just trust cars not to hit you, right?
Exactly.
So it's a balance.
Yeah.
And I could go so far to the optimism side where I'm like, you know what? I don't need any meds. I'm just going to go it alone and I'm going to be fine. And who knows? I might be.
Well, that's the same mindset that Steve Jobs had. And by the time that he realized that I may need medication, it was too late.
It's too late.
Yeah.
So what you just touched on there, these are the kinds of dilemmas that you're faced with when you get a diagnosis like this. You start thinking about, well, I'm going to try it for a while. I'll try going without meds for a while and just see how I do. And then, like you just mentioned, that's a possibility. Now, I ask myself, if I went without for a while, I said, I'm not going to do your treatment, doc. I'm just going to do my healthy living thing. If I got down the road and it looked like, oh, sorry, it looks like you're just not going to make it, I would regret not having tried this stuff.
Absolutely.
So you wonder how to make these impossible decisions. There are no clear decisions in cancer. There is no beating cancer. It's just, it hasn't been here for a while. I like to say the only way you can tell you beat cancer is if you die a long time from now from something else. That's the only way you know. And because it sometimes it comes back and sometimes you just don't know. So for me, I make those decisions based on, if I was in that situation, would I regret this decision I'm thinking about making right now? And if I would regret it, I'm just going to do the immunotherapy. And in this particular case, it was a pretty easy decision because the side effects are low. It's cutting edge technology. I'm well positioned to do well on it. If anyone is, I'm not, 300-pound diabetic sedentary with chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder. I'm relatively healthy. So if anyone should do well, it should be me. So I've got the deck kind of stacked in my favor. So this was a relatively easy decision to try this trial. I'm just trying to make it to the date, which is the 15th of this month.
Yeah, I know.
10 days.
On the October 31st, Halloween, you put out a video, and it no longer says 2 to 6 months. It says 2 to 3 weeks. All right. Now that to me was like, wow, 2 to 3 weeks. That is such a short time span. 2 to 6 months, we've heard it before. So it kind of gives you like a buffer. And then you said, well, my trial date's the 15th. And then you said, I'm supposed to be dead that day.
Yes.
With a smile, like you were cracking up. And I was like, this is crazy. Is this man sane? And then the quote after that was, I'm loving life. What do you mean by that? How can you be in that position and say, you know what, I'm loving life? So there's a lot I'm asking here at this one part.
Yeah.
But that's what October 31st, a couple of days ago, this is the post you put out.
Again, all of this is a surprise to me too, Bert. I mean, I can't explain. I mean, I would not have predicted that if I was in this situation that I would feel as good as I feel mentally about all this. But here's why. It's because when you have just a massive, impossible problem to solve, there's so many variables, there's so many unknowns, there are no right decisions that are obvious to make. It's almost a relief because I know I can't figure it out, so I don't even have to try, relatively speaking. Right. I mean, I'm obviously put thought into what I do, but I don't spend hours researching all the research articles. I'm not on all the forums looking at all the people, oh, these people did this and this. First of all, they all did different things. The ones that got better, they all did different things. So what worked for one person or what they think worked may not have been the thing that helped. It's hard to say. But again, that's a relief because it means I don't have to worry about it. I can just kind of push all that away. And then what's left is this, it's the the hilarious absurdity of being in this situation. I can't help laughing sometimes. Like, I was just laughing. You're saying 2 or 3 weeks. What is that like waking up? Is this the day? You know, because it could be theoretically.
Yes.
But because, I mean, we think about, I would compare it to someone who's living in a war-torn state, country. And death is just a part of going to school.
The next bomb can hit your building, you know.
The next bomb can hit your building. So these are people who get this. These are people, well, more so than I, because they can't really do anything about it. I have some options that can help me circumvent that, but these poor people, and yet they play stickball in the street. The kids do. They laugh and play. They have babies. They live as if there is a future. And that's all I'm doing. I'm living as if there is a future. Because what's the alternative?
When you say you live as a future of another day or a future of 50 years?
I'm thinking 50 years.
All right.
I'm thinking 50 years. So on the one hand, that's what I feel like I'm going to live till the bright bulb. I feel like you and I are going to be talking in 20 years.
Oh, I can't wait.
I'll be all gray, and you and I will be, who knows where we'll all be. Yeah. We'll be talking about this and going, man, that was a crazy situation, wasn't it? And we'll be laughing and having a cocktail or something. But yeah, that's how it just feels. If I just had to tell you what my gut says I'm going to beat this thing. I don't know the way I'm going to find around it, or my body is. I may never even know why I got better, but I just feel like that's a foregone conclusion because God or the universe or whoever is in charge has just dumped all this wealth of gifts on me. And it seems like it wouldn't work that way if I was about to be snuffed out. It just doesn't. It seems like that's not how the script would go. Oh. I don't think the script is going to be written like that. So this is. I mean, the old story, the hero's journey, and I'm not saying I'm a hero at all, but the typical storyline that all these, you know, like a Disney movie or something, there's a normal person and they go through a crisis they can't get out of, and then they get through it, and then they find enlightenment. That's the basic premise for every, you know, super successful movie or book. They call it the hero's journey. We're all on our own hero's journey. You know, we all have periodic cataclysms and, you know, big, small, everything in between. It just feels like this is a necessary part of me getting to my enlightenment, whatever that is for me. It just feels that way.
That's awesome. I mean, Les Brown, my good friend, he told me, you know, you sometimes want to do things in life and you really want to focus on it. And then the one question that always holds people back is they ask themselves, how? He says, the how is none of your business. Just focus on what it is you want to do. Don't worry about the how. And I took that piece of advice for years, and it's so true. You know, another one from Wayne Dyer, he says, when you decide to change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So looking at things at a different perspective, the way you are, of course you're seeing a change. But these are things that you're doing unconsciously, right? It's not something that you took these courses, and that's why you've become a motivator for other people. I motivate people, and you're motivating me to look at life. Life is so short at the end of the day. I mean, it's really short for you at this moment, but it's short. You know, life goes by like this, and you're like, next thing you know, you're 70 years old, right? I'm going to turn 55. You know what? Our birthdays are a few days apart. I'm November 10. No. and you're November 18th.
Oh my God.
I'm going to be 55, so you're a little younger than I am.
Hey, all
So
right, old man.
yeah, you see, but I've been following you, and that's one of the things. Every single one of your videos, you mention that you're healthy and you're young. I love that. Recently, all I've been saying is, man, I'm getting old. So it's crazy, right? Because what you say, you become. So because you've been saying, I thought before I found out your age, I thought you were like in your 40s. I'm like, this guy's really young. Your physique, oh my God, you have a six pack. You're in great shape. If I was to see you at a beach and you're wearing your Speedos, you couldn't tell anything wrong was with this man. But inside, your body's falling apart. And it's crazy. But your mind is not. So it's just insane, certain parts. It's crazy. And like I said from the beginning, I admire you as a person, as a human being, as a chiropractor. I mean, you really love your craft and you're still doing it. That was another thing that was impressive for us when we looked at your feed. It wasn't just trying to get attention. You were sharing your journey with the cancer. But after that, they wouldn't see you for almost a year, and you're still putting out content on how to help people with their lower back, with their arm, with their shoulder. These are the things you got to do. And I was like, look at that, man. Because some people just grab onto that and let's ride with this. You're getting more views with those videos than with your chiropractic one, but obviously you love your craft and you're still pushing it.
The secret is, Bert, is that it nourishes both ways. It nourishes both ways. I mean, I won't go into just the huge pile of stories, especially since this video series blew up. Patients from decade ago writing and saying long emails and saying, you held me when I could barely move, and you did these things. They're grateful for that. Who doesn't want that kind of legacy or feel like you've made a difference like that? Who doesn't? I think we all want that. Yeah. And it's not just me being selfless. It's selfish in a way. It re-energizes me. It fills me with, it's what makes me excited to get up every morning, excited. And it's not just work, but work is something that has been particularly rewarding for me, is working with people through pain. I did want to mention too, age. So age, a lot of the things that we associate with getting older are not from actually getting older. The things are, oh, I hurt and I didn't used to. I can't, I'm slower, I'm weaker, I'm more wobbly, I'm stiffer. Things used to be easier or difficult. Many of those things that we associate with getting older are not from getting older at all. They're just because we've failed to maintain the vehicle that our brain drives around every day. And those things are relatively easy to plug in. In fact, that's all I do every day, all day, every day with patients, is find out, oh, here's some, it's kind of like in your car. Oh, we change the oil every 4,000 miles or whatever. We check the tire pressure. That's all I'm doing, but just for humans, is showing them how to maintain their own vehicle, essentially. And then it runs great, and you can give it to your grandkids. It's not something that's just going to break down after 10 years or so. Yeah. So that feeling old thing is reversible in many cases.
I believe so. I want to ask you a couple more questions. How do you want to spend the time you have left? Like, for real?
It's probably the toughest question you've asked me. Which it means I'm not going to be able to give you a firm answer, but I'll tell you where I am right now. I want to keep living as close to a normal life as I can until it looks like I can't. And again, that could be overnight, theoretically. But I mean, I've thought about the options. I've had opportunities to go and spend a month in Cabo, someone graciously volunteered their beach house there in Cabo. You can just go stay as long as you want, go surfing and, drink mimosas, whatever. I could spend it. And I've had multiple friends, and of course my family said, "Oh, you can move in with us and just live in comfort. We'll take care of you." And while all of these,
How does that make you feel when your family and people have reached out to you like that?
I'm sorry.
How does that make you feel when they tell you like
Oh,
you can live
loved
here?
and just immensely supported. And it's your backup plan. It makes whatever decision I make feel much safer, because I've got this wall of people behind me just ready to step in and help, or maybe I have to fight them off almost. Family, friends, just again, an immense wealth of support. So it makes you feel like, hey, this isn't, I've got multiple plan Bs, people ready to jump in and take and help me where I need it. Just knowing you look big guy, you've been in the gym. It's having a spotter.
Yeah.
When you're doing your heavy bench press, right? How do you feel having a spotter versus not having a
I
spotter?
feel safe. I wouldn't do heavy weights if I didn't have a spotter.
Yes, that is how it feels for me. I feel safer taking any approach I do because I've got spotters.
So you gave me this answer, but that's not the answer I wanted.
Okay.
What is it?
So
you
how would
want?
I spend my last days?
Yeah. No, your moments now. You said it might be different once you get really close. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
how are you spending your time now? Basically, you're doing the same thing you've always been doing. But let's say tomorrow morning, like you see a little yellow. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to go back to work, or you're just going to look at that moment and say, you know what, I'm going to go into my bucket list, or maybe now I'm going to Cabo, even if it's for 6 hours. I don't know.
I go to Cabo, and I'll tell you this, I would invite my family along with me, because I wouldn't want. I mean, I just think about, it's not just about me.
Right.
This is, my parents have already lost one son, and they say that's the toughest thing anyone can go through, is losing a child.
I believe it.
And I don't want to die alone without them and make them feel like they don't even get my last moments. So I would spend it with my close family. For sure I would. And they are they're here now. They just arrived yesterday, and they'll be here as long as I want. So it would be family, would be for sure. It wouldn't be going and, yeah, you mentioned bucket list. My bucket list is getting my treatment approach out there. That's my main bucket list. And now that takes a lot of, we're in crunch phase right now. And I don't want to get into that, but I would rank that outside of family. That would be my highest priority, is because I don't want this pain treatment approach to die with me. And you can call it legacy if you want, but this has a potential to be have a massive effect on the world. I want it to get out there. But as far as fun stuff I would want to do, yeah, man, it would probably be something like that, a tropical beach, and take some surfing lessons, because I've never surfed before. I've always wanted to surf, and get over my fear of sharks, which is my huge irrational fear. It's pretty much my only one, I think. But just do it, and just soak up the nature, the water, the sun. I mean, wherever I am, I love the nature is an important part of that. Yeah. I mean, I'm finding, especially right now, like you mentioned, I mentioned the trees and the grass. Yeah. And I mean, all the stuff we just glance over and, oh yeah, I've seen that before. It's just mesmerizing to me. So,
especially in Texas, you have all 4 seasons, and it's a beautiful place. So you get to enjoy those things that we take for granted all the time. I tell people, you want to be successful. A real successful person is not the amount of money or connections or anything, is the amount of awareness. The more aware a person is, the more successful they'll be in life. because they're able to
Yes,
see
I would
opportunities
agree.
where others don't. They're able to see things like when you're helping these people cure pain, you are so aware that you can put your hand on their back and you can feel where they're having the pain. That's when you're really connected. You get what I'm saying? And most people don't live a life like that. Most people do the 9 to 5 or the 9 to 9 or whatever the new clock ticks for them. But at the end of the day,
Yeah,
they're not being aware. So, I mean, this
yeah.
is amazing. And just, I know you mentioned you were married. You don't have a significant other of some sort that you guys talk
Right
and that?
now,
Really?
not right now. My most recent ex girlfriend and I are besties now. We have been for years.
Wow.
Jessica is her name. Shout out to Jessica. But she's just wonderful.
Wow.
Um,
It's just so much
but no
harder
no
being
significant
alone.
other.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe it would be harder if you had someone with you, but yet it wouldn't be harder while you're going through it. But just knowing that you're going to leave this person, I don't know. It's just it's like a catch-22,
You're right.
right?
There are definitely times when it's nice to have someone there, to a shoulder, someone to hug, or a
Yeah.
shoulder to cry on, or someone to share innermost thoughts with. I definitely value that. And then on the other hand, I value my time to my own thoughts, because that's when that's how I work through some of this stuff, is on a long walk. Walking is great for thinking. Walking is, I mean, half mile into my hike, and my mind is already figuring stuff out and sorting through things. I come back physically refreshed, but also mentally and spiritually refreshed, I would say.
I would love to have another interview, like maybe by next year. So that way we can do like once a year and see.
Let's put it in the schedule.
Next year for our birthdays, we need to have another interview.
Yes.
But man, all the
100%.
prayers going your way. I'm going to hold you accountable. You're going to open up GoFundMe page and you're going to send me the link so I can send it to everyone that I know, because more people need to hear your story. More people need to be able to fund you to help you get the best help that you can get. You're willing to test your body and take it to whatever amount of tests that you have to take it to, but it's going to help those people that are coming up with cancer, that they're going to have other options. So in order to do that, we need funding. So we need to go ahead and support his GoFundMe page. And if you don't want to support his GoFundMe page, you can also follow him on YouTube. And on YouTube, Dr. Dan says he also has a program that helps you pretty much correct yourself with a chiropractor, him being there virtually, telling you what you need to do so you can relieve pain and pressures and all this is almost complete. I saw it this morning when I linked to his page. So there's other ways to help Dr. Dan through this journey, which is extremely expensive, and insurances don't cover. So we're all here to support Dr. Dan. Dr. Dan, you're phenomenal, man. You are a true inspiration to me, my daughter, who really saw it. She was the one that put us together.
Bert, so amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm under duress going to consider starting the GoFundMe page. I told you before we went on air. I'm real hesitant to do that, but I promise I will take it under strong consideration, and you'll have my answer this week. I promise.
Perfect.
And thank you so much
Thank you.
for inviting me on, and caring about this little adventure I'm on, and sharing it. I'm very grateful to you as well,
Dr. Dan,
thank you.
you're not going anywhere. I need to have an interview next year. Every year after that, we will have our interview. Yes. And we're going to have it.
It's a deal,
remember, I'm 55. You're going to be 55. 55 is when you become alive.
Right. That's right. That's when it all starts.
We're going to make this thing happen. So I want to thank you. I want to thank all the viewers. I'm going to leave you with my quote, the quote I live by: live life and don't let life live you. My name is BertOliva, Cuban born, American made.